Greetings and welcome to the RC Wallet Vacuum channel. In today's episode of How to Piss Away Money and Have Fun, the Losi 5T 2.0 is going to get a center differential upgrade. The tricky part is I have a split differential assembly from Fastlane Machining that is for the 1.0, and they claim it doesn't fit on the 2.0. So I'm going to try to see if I can get this thing installed in here and see if I can modify it and make it work in the 2.0. Well, let's start dismantling this thing and see how it goes. So down here at the bottom, you just got to get these two front screws here and these two back here. So to dismantle this, pop that bolt, that bolt. You got to pop these two set screws out, slide them things out, and then you pop this off, pull that around, and then I believe you got to pop the brake stuff apart. I Loctite the hell out of this stuff, so I end up having to heat these up. There might be another way of taking it apart as far as like the throttles go, but I don't like to remove them set screws and change them positions. It seems like an easier way to go. So it's out of the vehicle. You don't have to dismantle the brakes to get it out of the vehicle, but certainly you're going to change it, you will. Mine was pretty well stuck down there. I had to pry it off. You'll have to reuse these collars that are on these brake cams. Those mine's stuck in here. Fastlane supplies those. They don't supply those in the kit, or these brake levers. I don't know why they would. One thing to know on these Losis and their drive systems and others is the cup wear and the dog bone pin wear. This one right here is probably, this is an original cup, and it's probably got, I don't know, maybe 2 seasons on it thereabouts. And the dog bone pin isn't worn that bad, so obviously the pin's a little bit harder than the cup. But over here on the front, on my machine in this particular setup, it may apply to all Losis, I'm not really sure, Losi 5Ts. This one here is, I think it's a Team Chase hardened cup. This wore out, the front side of the center differential wore out pretty quick, both the dog bone and the cup. So I put this Team Chase in here, and that's held up well, but it, something's got to give, so it ends up being the pin gets worn down pretty well. If you can see that or not. Well, this is the front one here. I don't like that bluing and straw. There's some heat is being generated somewhere in there. It's gonna raise hell with the temper of this deal. So anyhow, I keep spare dog bones around here, and then when I get enough of them, I just go set the press up. I got a fixture on there, and I punch those things out and replace the pins themselves, and not the dog bones. If I keep spares around, it makes it so much easier when I'm doing something like this. I just grab it off the shelf, reassemble it, and then replace pins later on. So the point I'm trying to make is that with these things, if you run the hardened cups and the stock dog bones, you're going to go through more dog bones than you will cups. So I have the differential put back together. I replaced the rear drive cup with another one of the Team Chase. Front one I left, that's the original, that's a Team Chase I put in a little while back. That's still doing well. I up to 30K fluid from the 15K that's stock. We'll see how that works. So I'm ready to start putting this unit together. Like I already mentioned, this is meant for a 1.0. So I'm going to see if I can actually get it to work in a 2.0. Goes together, you got to put that flange up against the bearing. So it drops down in there. That's the front side, obviously. And then the rear side, same thing, got that flange in there. And then these units go up on there. They're sort of symmetrical. They're in that little flange. That's got to go. I mean, this one could go over here. Drop them down onto those bosses. Same with that. And so here where I think it's going to be the problem. It's got these recesses machined in there, which drop down on those and clears the gear. But I never had a 1.0, so I don't know what the difference is between a 2.0 and a 1.0, especially as far as the gearing goes. But here's where I'm hung up. Definitely a space in there. And it's binding on the gear in there. So I'm going to take this thing off. I'm going to machine some angles on there and see if I can do it and get the clearance, but not remove so much material that weakens it a lot. If worse comes to worse, and it does happen, I'm going to use this as a template to build a different top plate and run it out a little bit further and still have that same clearance in there. And I'm hoping not have to do that. I did roughly assemble this thing, put it in the machine, and the gear mesh I think lines up. So I don't know why in this situation the 1.0 setup will not work with a 2.0 when the gear lines up, but it doesn't up here. It doesn't really make any sense. So that's gonna be the next step, is to machine that out and see if I can finish putting this thing in and see if it's gonna set up. So I've done a little digging on what's between the 1.0 and the 2.0 as far as gearing goes. And the 1.0 has a 19 pinion and a 58 spur. The 2.0 has a 20 pinion and a 62 spur, so that explains why that won't drop. It's meant for a 58, it won't drop on that 62. So I don't know if it was planned this way or if it's just a fluke of nature, but changing those two gears, I mean, it changes the gear ratio a little bit, but it also, coincidentally enough, allows that to mesh up. So what's important is that the center line on the differential shaft there and the center line over here are the same. And with this Fastlane 1.0 assembly and the stock 2.0, they're pretty much identical. I was down in there with a pin gauge where the low point on the pinion and the high point on the spur gear, and I get a 40 thousandths pin gauge in there. It would go with a slight bit of movement, and that's with a stock. And then when I switched to the Fastlane, dropped in there and it's set almost in exactly the same place. That 40 thousandths pin was a little bit snug, but I mean, I don't see where it's going to be an issue. So the next step is to go over to the mill, and I'm going to shave off. I got that thing fixtured up, and I'm going to shave off some material, and hopefully I don't take off too much, just to get enough to clear that gear. And if not, I'm just going to either just get a different top plate for a 2.0 or make a new one out of aluminum. I'll use the old ones as a template and just kind of widen it a little bit where it goes around them gears. So off to the mill. So the machining's done, at least I hope. I didn't have to really take that much material off. A little bit of an angle I had to put in there. I don't think it's going to be an issue with strength. Still quite a bit left in there. So I'm going to slap this thing down in there. I got it partly assembled to see how it's going to line up. And it's been tight, so it spins freely. There's enough. I don't know if this camera's going to focus in on that, but there's plenty of clearance. I thought I was going to machine the back side of that off, but it turns out there was enough clearance in there. So it's running nice and smoothly. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish the bench assembly of it here and fit in there and see if I was able to hold that that mesh properly on the gears. So it's back together and everything spins freely. The thickness across here on both these towers is quite a bit less than the stock ones. Enough so that these flanges on the brake disc there, on this rear side, these were catching the inside of the this drive cup and was bowing the disc out. So this one here I spun around facing it out, and I don't see where that's going to be an issue. It clears and it seems like it's going to work fine. But for whatever wacky reason, the one on the front drive cup, that disc doesn't have to be spun around. It's not bottoming out or nothing. It's sitting in there fine. I don't see an issue with that one. So I'm going to leave that as is. They were off, I think, almost like 50 or 60 thousandths difference. Basically, whatever this gloss was, I think, that's on that little tab on that molded nylon part. Another thing to make note on too is with these Fastlane, they put these set screws in here to allow you to lock your caliper bolts in better. You could probably use the old lock nuts from the stock 2.0 stuff, but I ended up putting new 3mm lock nuts on there anyhow. So I just got it set together now, snugged up, and I'm just going to make sure everything fits in there first, and eventually I'll pull the thing back out and Loctite everything and secure it. But right now I just want to see how it's going to work and what it's going to fit in there. And because of that, I'm not going to be running this thing for quite a while anyhow. So everything else in life, another problem is showing up on this setup. I don't know if this is just because it's a 1.0, 2.0 mix or what's going on, but I don't know if the camera's going to show that, but there is a little, they got a radius down on the inside of there, and that don't swing in there. So I don't know if the 1.0's brake cams are a little narrower or what, but you know, that ain't gonna work. So it just binds up. So back to the lathe to fix that. So these upper clamps are machined out. I got the cut that radius out of there. I don't know what that'll do to the warranty. So there are some other brake calipers on there, and I'm going to drop them in place and make sure these things still spinning there okay. They look like they're going there. Yeah, it's tilting forward, so you know it's got some clearance. So the other thing to note on here is the 1.0 must have had must have threaded into here and used a set screw, where these 2.0 caliper bolts go through there, and the holes are close enough, there shouldn't be a problem. I'm just using the lock nuts on the back, and I will use their screws, their set screws, to lock them in place. But they seem to work going in and out without a problem, and it sits on there right. So we'll see how I'll put this section together and see what comes up next. And this is why I wanted to have this split setup. And I didn't see anybody else had the split setup. Maybe they may by now, because I got this a while back. But I mean, the bottom section of the tower stay in there. You just pull this section right up and out. No fuss, no muss there. And then you get ready to slap it back down in there. And you gotta make sure you these are the collars on. Never remember which side those go in. Another problem that's reared its ugly head, and I alluded to earlier, is with these the difference between the stock and the Fastlane towers. The stock one here is 4450 across that face over that little boss there that the brake caliper is going to sit on. And in the case of the Fastlane, that's around 3715 across there. So the issue becomes the fact that when you're going to put these brake cams in here, you can't get into the right position because you're forced back. You need to be into that one. You're forced into this one, so you don't get enough travel off of that. So I'm going to end up having to go through and make some spacers down to sit along that face and shift that inner disc or inner pad out about 70 thousandths, and that should clear up that issue. So I will be heading off to the lathe to take care of that. So I had the spacers put in here, and it took them right into here to space that out. I think I went up like about 70 thousandths, 68, something like that. It's all back in there now, and spins free with no problem with the hit throttle, nothing going on there. But it just start getting a little bit of brake, and it's starting to come in, and then it slams right tight, squeeze right up again. So, of course, since I added 68 thousandths or so to that depth, my screws are a little too short now. I got just enough to catch the lock nuts like halfway in, but it doesn't catch the nylon. So I'm going to pull this thing back apart. I'm going to put these top clamps back in the mill, and I'm going to put a set end mill down in there and just countersink that in there about 70 thousandths, maybe a little extra. I don't want to take out too much because I want this bolt to have a face to work on inside there. So, but that'll be the next step. Other than that, I think that it actually is complete. Another issue is, and I don't care, it's going to be this top strap across here. This would have to be machined out to clear. And my thinking is, this is nylon, and this gets so freaking hot up on top here. This stuff's got to be stretching. I don't know what it's doing anyhow. So I'm either going to replace it with a carbon fiber, leave it as is, or just machine a new nylon or new aluminum one for in there. But I don't really know if it even really needs it that much. But other than that, I mean, there's a lot of modifications you got to do to it, but it is able to work. And it's nice because you got the split. You can just pop that top cap off there, and get access to your differential without pulling the base out. And I don't know whether it's worth it or not. I don't know, but I did it anyhow, and it does work. So here's the parts with the spacers in, and once I got them back off the vehicle. Like I said, I got to take and make up for that lost material on them threads of the screws, those caliper hanger bolts. And you can see you may be able to see in there that the nylon's not quite catching there. So I'm going to drop that down in there on the mill with an end mill, and should be able to, and plus it'll give me a little extra clearance up on the gear by the front. So here are the top differential clamps, and I went through and I milled out enough off that top face to make up for the spacer I had to put in there. I just needed just enough so that those screws caught the nylon in those lock nuts, and there are set screws in here that I'll probably tighten on down too, as long as they don't change the position of the caliper hanging bolts. I don't think they will. But so it does, it is possible to convert this Fastlane split differential that's for a 5T 1.0 to use it to a 2.0, but it's definitely a project. So far I've had to make them spacers. I had to mill out those radiuses so those cams could spin in there. Otherwise they were just going to bind up. Then this top plate had to be milled out. Had to get them 45s put on there. And I don't think that weakened it up enough to cause a problem. That piece of plastic that's stock in there worked. I don't see why this won't. And the other thing I was able to correct to is on these brake discs. The front one, I believe the flange was okay. At the back one, I had to reverse it because of the spacing. It wouldn't clear it, but I was able to spin them back around the way they're supposed to be. Everything seems to fit in there. All cycles properly on the brakes. I don't see any issue with it at this point. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to try it for a little while because of weather. But I am looking to do a project later on this winter. I'm going to put tracks on this vehicle. So I know this was a long, convoluted video, but learned quite a bit in conversion between a 1.0 and a 2.0. Hopefully there's some good information for anybody who stuck around and watched it. So to those people, thanks.